Да. Вече е време да започнем нашата следобедна сесия. Тя ще започне с представяне на господин Филип Рамбол, председател на борда на директорите, изпълнителен директор и съсобственик в Аврополихим. Едно уточнение, той ще говори на английски. Както видяхме, знае и добре български. Но този път ще говори на английски, така че който не може да слуша достатъчно ясно, да вземе устройство за симултанен превод. Заповядайте.
Good afternoon. And I will try to speak slowly. Okay, let's try this here. Agropolychim is actually a group of companies. Our commercial company is called Affaire. And our mother company has a sexy name, Asset and Fertilizers. This is to show you how beautiful a chemical factory can be. And I call it version 209. Why version 2? Because it's after privatization. And 9 is probably because we have done 9 major investments in this company. And we'll find out by the end of the speech whether the lights are going to go out or they will stay on afterwards. A couple of figures, $500 million turnover, net profit estimated of this year 15 million, maybe a little bit more, depends on a couple of deals that might happen. 1,000 people, our cost is about 1,450, so I don't know why people are talking about minimum salaries here. Very shortly also the production, so you have in mind what we're doing. We have a nitrogen line and a phosphate line. Nitrogen, remember, gas. Phosphates, remember, phosphates and sulfuric acid. The nitrogen line, the core production is an ammonia factory. Ammonia is basically a synthesis of gas. It's our raw material. 85% of our cost is gas. On the phosphate line, what we do is we mix phosphates and sulfuric acid, and we make phosphoric acid, and then from then onwards we make other fertilizer products. I have drawn 2 lines there for the ammonia. Ammonia is used also in the phosphate line for making complex fertilizers. But I think that's already too complex for you, so I will give you a little bit of crash course in fertilizers. N, P, and K. It's like vegetables, we talked about it this morning, starch and protein. People need to have, except the vegetarians, they can do with only vegetables, but normally you have starch, protein, and vegetables. A plant is exactly the same. A plant needs nitrogen, N, P, phosphates, and K, potassium. It's a bit strange, but the K from potassium is actually K from kalium. So N, P, and K. And they have all their specific reasons why they're there. Of course, it's not only that. There's a lot more. And so you have a small table of Mendeleev there, where you have calcium, magnesium, sulfur, etc., but we're not going to go into there. Important to know is that between all these elements in the soil, there has to be balance. And there is in the soil in agronomy, this is called the law of minimum. It is that you have to have a certain proportion between all these nutrients in the soil, and if you don't have this balance, the soil will be as effective as the lowest level of one of your ingredients. That's very important to understand. Why? Because you need to make everything work. Another thing which is very important is that the acidity of the soil. If a soil is very acid, and they call that with pH, pH lower than 6 is going acid, pH higher than 7 is going alkaline. That's a little bit of chemistry. But you will see there, for instance, take the phosphorus line. You see if the pH is, for instance, 6, you see that there? The effectiveness of the phosphor is very much reduced. It means that if the soil is very acid, whatever phosphate you put in the soil, it's not going to work. The same for potassium, and so on. So actually the basis of the whole story is that a farmer has to make soil analysis. You know, in order to find out first what is your acidity. You work with very acidic soils, Nothing will happen. You can throw everything you want there. Okay, you will have a little bit of dobif, 3-4 tons, but you will never get to 6, 7, or 8 tons that it should be. Important to know is also that all this is investments. Because if your soil is very acid, you need to correct it and need to throw lime, var. But of course, you throw it there, it has an effect 1 year, 2 years, and it takes you some time and money in order to increase decrease the acidity. Phosphates and potassium is also an investment in your soil. And remember what I said, your soil will only be as productive as the minimum nutrition that you have there. If you don't put phosphate in your soil, nitrogen will help you, but you will never get the efficiency that you should have. Same for potassium. And what happens here, we all know very well. Farmers don't know whether they're going to be working here, working on the same soil next year, and so people don't invest. They don't do the soil analysis, they don't correct the pH. I'm not saying everybody, some of them do. They don't put the phosphate, they don't put the potassium, and then we are hearing every year, fantastic, average efficiency, average dobif of Bulgaria, 4.3 ton. The soil of Bulgaria is not worse than France. The average in France is 8.3 tons. Can you imagine how much money we're leaving in the ground? Can you imagine that? So that's why farmers here also, for a long time, focused on nitrogen. Because nitrogen, not like phosphate and potassium, you see an immediate effect. And what is not used afterwards goes down in the rain, through the drain, and it's gone. And so the next year they put it back in there. But it's an immediate effect, not like phosphate and potassium that you need to invest and then it will start working. So what do the farmers think? And why do I start with that? Because you will need to know why, you will understand why this is important for our business and our business model. A farmer is uncertain because, first of all, the land that he has now, he doesn't know whether he's going to work it next year. Commensage didn't work. We have had a huge drop in grain prices. We're talking about 40 to 50%. It's a lot of money that was left on the table. Subsidy program, I hear that Minister Grekov is doing his job, which is fantastic. I didn't expect him to do what he said that he was going to do, but it's fantastic news for us. But of course, we haven't seen the finals on the operational program 2014-2020 yet. And the question will be, when are the farmers going to get subsidies in 2014 or in 2015? And it's a lot of billions. It's very important. Also, we all think it's getting warmer, and it does. Irrigation has been completely destroyed in the country. One way or another, we will have to address this, at least in the places where it's possible. That is as far as the Bulgarian market is concerned. We're also working on the national market. What is the situation there? We have a huge drop in grain prices, also there. So, I mean, farmers, they're going to skip a year or two investments in phosphates and potassium, P and K, which then will have an effect on our production, actually on the world market. And we see also that in the last years, there has been a tremendous increase in capacity in Saudi Arabia, where there's a new plant which came up, which costed $2.5 billion, 2.5 million tons. The Moroccans have done the same. $3 billion, another 2 million tons. Jordans are expanding, Tunisians are expanding. Everywhere there has been expansion of capacity. And now all of a sudden we see, because of the huge drop in grain prices, a huge drop in consumption of phosphates and potassium. And that, of course, brings a complete standstill of the phosphate market. The gas prices, we know all what's happening. We pay very high gas prices here. We had a feeling, we knew that it's not sustainable to continue like that. And now with the shale gas in the United States, where the gas costs $4 per MBTU, where it's here is $12, now they're investing $3 billion in new factories there. There's going to be a fundamental change in the ammonia trade in the next 4 or 5 years, if not faster. This means that the first effect will be that ammonia prices start dropping, because right now ammonia is going from Russia and Trinidad to the States. In 2 years' time, the States will say, thank you very much, we have enough ammonia of ourselves, and we make it cheaper. And this ammonia from Russia and Trinidad will have to go somewhere, and that will depress all the prices of ammonia. And remember, my nitrogen line, my first product is ammonia. And my problem is that I have a high gas price. So what do we do about this? You have to know that we are in a boom-bust business. Sometimes it's fantastic, sometimes it's not so fantastic. And the question is really, how are we going to survive when it's not so fantastic? That's why one of the policies that we take, we're not a bank, we don't give credits to farmers. Banks have to give credits to farmers. We also have long-term views. So that's why the discussion we had this morning about what do you think about next year, 1 or 8%, 1 or 2% growth, I don't care. Because we invest 10, 15 years ahead, and also especially since the investments take such a long time to implement, and you will hear about it. That's why we need to start on time and fight bureaucracy. And yes, we talked about this morning, we are a big company, but we are not independent from the government. But we will try. We will try, and I will explain you why. So we go back now to, with the background that I told you, remember, phosphates is an investment in the soil, gas is an issue, ammonia price is going to drop. I have a nitrogen line. My nitrogen line makes 400,000 tons. Ammonium nitrate and urea ammonium nitrate, which is basically a liquid fertilizer. It's 50% of our turnover, 85% is sold in the Bulgarian market, and actually I'm the largest seller in the Bulgarian market. We control 60% of the Bulgarian nitrogen market. We had existential discussions, I'm talking about 10 years ago, not about ourselves, but about what we're going to do with the company. We knew there was a problem in the ammonia line. The gas was expensive. Also, our ammonia plant is not efficient. Any ammonia plant in the Balkans is not efficient. They were all built 40 years ago. So Pharma is celebrating 80 years this year. Next year, I will be celebrating 40 years, Agropolychem. So this means that most of the facilities have been built, if not rebuilt, 40 years ago. At that time, to give you an idea, the amount of gas, normal cubic meters for 1 ton ammonia is 1,250. Right now, the newest plants make it for 900 tons. And if you, on top of that, pay a gas price of 12, where the others are paying 4, you can imagine where we're going to. So we had to decide what we're going to do, whether we're going to keep the whole nitrogen line open or not. And so we decided that in 2003, the only way to survive is to give ourselves the possibility to import ammonia. We decided that in 2003, we are going to finish this next year. I'm very positive. Now you understand why I'm so happy. Because after 11 years, we're going to finish this investment. 11 years. We will have invested 23 million euros in there. You see, like, this is the roof going up there. This was a crane of 800 tons. We had made the roof next to it, and we moved the roof to the terminal, the reservoir, with a crane there. It's like a flying saucer. The important thing to know is actually that this is going to fundamentally change the game of the fertilizers in the Balkans. Why? Because if I have a problem with my high ammonia price, there are other fertilizer plants who have a problem with ammonia price. And if I start importing with cheaper ammonia, probably the others also want to start importing with cheaper ammonia. But it will take them 10 years to build an ammonia terminal. I hope less, but... So what we see is a fantastic opportunity to actually start create new businesses, new possibilities, and already now I have clients in Serbia who said, Philip, can you ship us 1,000 tons of ammonia a day? We will be able to, but let's finish first the thing. And for people who are a little bit artistic, I invited Christo to come and package my ammonia plant. No, it's a joke. I mean, he didn't come. But it's nice. I mean, we are putting isolation now around it, and in order to protect it against moisture, we completely packaged it. With the ammonia terminal, we also need to have a quay, because you need to bring ships in. And so you see just above the white terminal, the white reservoir, you'll see a ship laying there, red, without anything. This ship, actually, we're going to move to the tower to the left. This ship here, we're going to move here. This was signed, this is a public-private partnership, which means basically private plaća pošti всичко. It was signed in 2009, 2010. Remember this morning I said, the first year of a new government is always good. So in 2009, we actually got a full green light, a go-ahead to build the ammonia terminal. And I give honors to Rosen Plevnev as the Minister of Regional Development, who finally said what Philip has been saying since 2003, that you need to have ad hoc regulations, is the way it should be done. We need to apply best available technology. I waited 6 years to get this. 6 years. Also at that time, we signed this public-private partnership where we said we're going to pay for everything. The only thing you have to do is to dredge the channel. And then we have these hilarious discussions in the port infrastructure in Sofia, because a little bit to the left there's a blato, there's a marshland. And then, of course, people in Varna, they want to go ahead, but the people in Sofia, they don't want to go ahead, for obvious reasons. Oh, but не можем да правим dredging там, защото ще намали територията на България. Quote unquote, we are having to do with these idiots. We're going to reduce the territory from Bulgaria because we're dredging. Then they send us to the catacombs from Gorna Oryahovice to find some document from 1974. We found the document. The guy was sick afterwards for 2 weeks, but we found the document, And like this, things go on, and so that's why it takes us 11 years to make just a bloody, buck. Linked to that, and taking the risk that we will solve the problem of the gas and the ammonia, we have built a new ammonium nitrate plant, which was also an investment of 80 million euros, which has started to work this year, and we will get complete all the papers next month. But another 80 million euros was there. So the nitrogen line, it was the most difficult decision for us, what to do, shall we invest, how to make it happen. We're not there yet. The terminal, the BAC, the reservoir is there. We now need to make the links, sink the ship, and we hope that the government is finally going to do what they're supposed to do, and dredge. That's the only thing we want. They have to dredge. Then my problem actually will be solved, because as of October, I can say to Bulgargas that they don't need the gas anymore. By the way, we're consuming 12% of the gas of Bulgaria. And bio-nitrogen line will actually be fully operational and profitable. My phosphate line is, so remember, combination of sulfuric acid and phosphates. Sulfuric acid we get normally from Pirdop. Phosphates we get from all kinds of dodgy Arab countries. So it was a little bit difficult for us with the Arab Spring. But it represents 50% of our turnover, and we are exporting. 90% of the phosphates are exported, and we export from Peru to Bangladesh. So in that diapason. The cost drivers are these three elements. Unfortunately, the export market is completely closed. It completely shut down. Remember, gas price dropped. On top of that, the Indian rupee, which was a major consumer, we talk about 2 million tons of fertilizers, of phosphates. The Indian rupee devaluated, and they stopped buying. And right now, there's a huge malaise in the phosphate market in the world, whereby the big producers like Morocco and even Ma'aden in Saudi Arabia, they're working at 50% capacity. So we are having our last orders of export going out now, and we will see what's going to happen. The Bulgarian market is too slow also to compensate for that, for the obvious reasons that I said. People don't invest in phosphates, don't invest in their land, but one day they will have to do that. And the MAPDAP, which is a combination of phosphates and ammonia, this thing is not profitable right now because my ammonia price that I have now for my own ammonia production is too high. So I will need to wait until I have my ammonia storage tank, October, and then I will be able to make this. So we have a difficult situation in the phosphate market. You remember we made a big fuss last year in the newspapers when we said that we were going to shut down about the phosphogypsum deposit. There was a typical example of racket by not only the former government but also other governments. We basically were saying that it took us 7 years to get authorization to have a phosphogypsum here. On the phosphate line, actually, the place where I put the waste is one of the most important decisions, is the most important assets, because if you don't have a place to put the waste, you have basically to shut down. This is phosphogypsum. It's not radioactive. It's not toxic. It's basically calcium sulfate, a mixture. There is no, for each ton of phosphoric acid we produce, we have 5 tons of this thing. When you fly into Varna, you will see on your right-hand side a white mountain. This is the white mountain. I can guarantee you that by end of next year it will be green, because we are recultivating this thing. But so my discussion was to have extra space for the future, and the next discussion will be actually to get authorization to fill up the space between these 2 mountains that we will create. No rocket science for that, but I think already it will take us 10 years, so that's why we start already now. But luckily for me, the new government came in, unbelievable, and that's why I'm saying we're not going to stop talking anymore, but also positive and negative. Minister Bobeva called me and said, I heard you had some problems. I said, you have problems. He said, I'll be in Varna. Can I come and see you? Comes to us, we explain the thing. Next week, the week afterwards, call the governor, call the Minister of Environment, have meetings, and we're about to solve the problem. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, yeah? So I'm not so negative where I say, oh, everything is bad with this. I can only say that what I have seen before was much worse. And I say there are very good people in this government who really take things at heart and do stuff for business. So for the phosphates, it's going to be a very long road to recovery, for the obvious reason that the farmers here will have to learn to put phosphates. One day there are very good farmers here, and there are farmers who get 8 tons, 8 tons per hectare, which is very good. And they are in Nobridge, they are even in Lom, and they do the things by the book. But this is a small thing. Everybody will have to start playing or recording the book. But remember, the hidden treasures which are in the agriculture are unbelievable. You can double the output there. Even if they say 50%, it's a lot already. We will create ourselves the import possibility of phosphoric acid, which means that as we see that if we make ourselves phosphoric acid is not profitable, we will be able to possibly import phosphoric acid, which will not be so good for the sulfuric acid producers in Pirdop, in the copper. But okay, they will have to lower their prices one day in order to be able to get rid of their sulfuric acid. And of course, what we have to do also, that's our obligation, is to inform and remind, in fact, the farmers that they have to do a balanced feeding of the soil with the nutrients which are necessary. That's a new one, which we started 2 years ago. We're actually in a fantastic location. We are in the port. Unfortunately, the port is not privatized, and so we still have to do with lousy efficiencies. But it also has lousy efficiencies because for 20 years, Sofia has not given any money to Varna port. Can you imagine? 20 years long, Varna has not been able to buy serious new equipment. Now we have a new minister, and luckily he's from Varna, so maybe it's going to change. Hopefully. But so for us, flexibility is the key, and being flexible means also that we need to be able to import and fill up the gaps which we cannot fill up with our own production. And there we have invested, and we're finalizing investments of over 5 million, where we basically going to give ourselves a possibility to increase packaging possibility from 1,700 tons per day to next year 4,000 tons per day. 4,000 tons per day, to make it simple, that's every 6 minutes, one truck which is leaving our factory fully loaded. It's logistics. So we're going to go there. We are importing now also NPKs because indeed some farmers got smart and started applying the full range of nutrients. And so it's a new market which is finally developing. And we are hoping to increase the import and export, which we started 2 years ago. At that time, it was 70,000 tons. This year we will do 150,000 tons. Next year we will do 250,000 tons. That's one of the investments, new warehouses that we have put in place. Actually, we're going to build now another one for another 4,000 square meters. So 2014 is a key transition year, and we're going to be changing the rules by which the game will be played. The ammonia terminal, it's my dada, it's my bebe, it's my project. It took me 11 years. Nobody believed it's going to happen, but it will happen, except if the government decides to boycott me. But it will not happen, I think. The expansion of the fossil gypsum deposit, we feel that is going on. We need to finalize and go ahead with it. The phosphoric acid pipeline, this is all, it sounds strange. Phosphoric acid pipe, I need to make a phosphoric acid. This is a pipe of 1.5 kilometers that I have to pull. Huh? It's not something like, okay, I'm going to make a pipeline here. No? It's 1.5 kilometers. These are not small stuff. This is going to cost me a couple of millions. Improve my logistics. And then, of course, we need to talk a little bit about environment. We hope that the government is finally going to do what they have signed in the privatization contract, which means clean up historical pollution. The Agropolychem was privatized in 1999. Next year will be 15 years. They still haven't done what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to clean up this mess. We have discussed with 5 governments. We will see whether this one will do it now or not. It's very important for us. Why? Because we are attracting new investors and new companies to build plants on our side because of the locations, because of the connections with Solvay, and so on and so on. But of course, if you have a thing like that, nobody's coming. So we have done our share because we have built, for instance, this wastewater treatment plant, which cost me 40 million euros, capacity of 500 cube per hour, and my water is coming out cleaner than it comes into my plant. But I can do that, and why Zlatni Piasecki cannot do that? So my budget with 2014 will be based on finalizing all my investments, full production line of my nitrogen, full, except 2 months, probably in the summer, because usually you have some shutdowns to fit a little bit with the ammonia and other things like that. And we will start importing ammonia, hopefully, inshallah, as of October. We will stop our phosphate line, which is not a good news, probably in February, but we will be very opportunistic. Switch on, switch off, switch on, switch off, switch, that's a good one. Switch on, switch off, depending on the sulfuric acid price as well. And we will import. So that's basically our budget. My message is a little bit not like John Kennedy was saying, but a little bit different. Don't ask yourself what you're going to take from us. Ask the business guys to ask us what you're going to give to them. And then do it. And I promised you this morning that I'm not going to shut up anymore. So here, if you think that I have not been racketeered in the last government, now you're all sitting down, and I guess you will continue to sit down. We had a discussion with the customs, which started last year in November. That was the reason also why I refused to come last year, Lily. I refused to come here because of this discussion. We had a discussion on 42 ships which were coming in. Out of the 170 ships we were bringing in into Varna. For 42 ships, there was a discussion on whether we had paid VAT, whether we had declared insurance on the cargo or not. And so the question was whether I should have paid VAT on that or not. It's a discussion because really I still am convinced that we should. It was there. They say no. But okay, fine. The point was it costed, the discussion was about 1,000 leva per ship, and on average 42,000 leva. We discussed, I said, okay, fine, I will pay 42,000 leva, no problem. Ah, no. I will pay 100%. Ah, no. I have 42 acts. 42. On the discussion of this act of 2,800 leva. And they were asking from me 8.7 million leva. So I want to see which other company has had a thing like that. Because I had 42,000 leva discussion and they asked from us 126 million leva. That's a penalty of 300,000%. And what I'm saying to them, listen, you're not defending the Bulgarian borders here, you're defending the EU borders. Give me one country in Europe which has the same interpretation of the law as you're doing. Ah, това е закон. This means that for 5 years I didn't sleep. 5 months I didn't sleep. They could have stopped the plant. They could have, they were actually very nice because they didn't block my accounts. Because I told them I'm going to make a huge fuss. But they didn't block the accounts. They were very nice actually. They changed the law afterwards to make sure that the interpretation was never going to be like that anymore. So not everybody was bad, but there were some very bad ones. So when people are saying to me now, we are anti-anti, every single government has given us problems. Every single government. Most of them by not doing anything. 10 years I wait to get a reservoir being built. 7 years I wait to get authorization for a phosphogypsum deposit. But when they come with these things to you, and they basically want to liquidate the business, then I say, listen, let's stop. Let's stop. We still don't know who was behind it. I went to court. I won all the 42 cases, all of them. And on top of that, we had another case for another 700,000 leva, because as you know, there's an axis on gas, except if the gas is used for not for heating. Ammonia is not, the gas is used for ammonia is not for heating, so it's obviously, the most elementary chemic will know that it's not used for that. We still have to go to court. Why do I have to spend in court all the time, why do I have to spend so much time in court to try to prove the things which are all absolutely normal? In any case, so I'm very optimistic because we survived this fight. We are building up, and one day we're going to go to version 3.0, end of 2014, and we're going to be ready for the next 15 years, but under different circumstances, because end of 2014, I can say to Burgagas, I don't need your gas anymore. I can say to a lot of people, I don't need your stuff anymore. And if I want to, I can shut down the whole plant and just start importing, which hopefully we will not do, but we will make ourselves independent. That's a promise that we gave ourselves 10 years ago, and we're getting there. Thank you very much. "40 seconds left. Questions? Suggestions? Sorry? Because we solved the problems. I know, like this morning, I tell you, there are, before I have